The most important hazard to be aware of associated with running water is natural disaster of flooding, which occurs more frequently and costs more than any other type of natural disaster in the United States, accounting for some $200 billion to $500 billion in damage per year. And of course, rivers are often flood, and they naturally flood. That's why they have floodplains. During a flooding event, the water flows out of the channel of the river and flows across the flat land of the floodplains. Traditionally, these have been used for farming, but with urban development and all, we tend to see more and more communities being based on floodplains, and they're putting themselves really in harm's way when they do this. Here's an example, a very narrow floodplain, but historically all of this has been used for farming. We can see, in fact, it's good fertile land. That's why people farm on it. It gets replenished by the river occasionally. All of the smaller farms here are up on the side of the valley or on top of the valley, and the best farmland in this area, shown in red, are all those areas that are part of the floodplain of this river. However, and it would be great if we just used floodplains for farming or for parks or things that we can just kind of leave alone when the flooding occurs. But of course, we tend to develop these areas. This shows Pittsburgh, built right on the floodplain of 3 different rivers. The Allegheny River to the north, Monongahela River to the south, comes together to form the beginning of the Ohio River here. And of course, there were good reasons for building Pittsburgh where it was when it was first built. They could bring in iron ore and coal from the neighboring areas on this river here, on these 2 rivers. They would manufacture the heavy steel in Pittsburgh, and then put it on barges where they could float it down all the way to the Mississippi River, out through New Orleans, and distribute it both around this country and around the world. And when people build on floodplains, usually it's up to planning commissions or zoning regulations in order to determine where they can and cannot build. But in general, the policy in the United States has been to build on floodplains, for those people to have flood insurance, and then to pay out the insurance as the flooding occurs. But this whole idea of building on floodplains just kind of naturally feeds into this cycle of natural disasters that we experience with flooding. And of course, in some areas, these floodplains can be extensive. This shows St. Louis, Missouri, which is a satellite image. So the pinkish colors are going to indicate where the urban areas are. And the river is shown in this darkish, bluish, blackish color here. This was this first photo was taken when the Mississippi River was not flooding, and the second photo was taken in the summer of 1993 when the Mississippi River was flooding. So we can see that there's really extensive areas. In downtown St. Louis, a lot of that was protected by walls along the river, but areas were flooded. But moving away from there into areas like East St. Louis, those areas experienced a lot more flooding because they were not as developed, and a lot of people's lives were greatly affected by this flood.